Hello, I'm Dr. Wendy Rowley, and this is episode 20 of the series, The Heart Field. It is a combination of information that I provide, and I work with a guide who has brought in heart field healing and the tones of the heart, and her name is Allaenea of Cosmic Service. She's a Pleiadian mother of sound. And she comes in and gives us some information and channeling in this particular series. It's not an energy work series like some of my other work, but I have been finding it very juicy and helpful. There's also some work she's brought forward in the Sedona Journal of Emergence, as well as on the website in the section called the Wisdom Channels. You can find up in the hamburger menu. There's lots of free information there too. And I have been practicing some of the things she has recommended. When you meditate for a long time, or if you've learned a creative visualization way of meditating, it can get a little stale after a while. It's almost like, energies on the other side of the veil have figured out what you do and they're throwing energy out. And sometimes you just got to learn something new and try something new. And, there's the type of meditation where you go in and you close your eyes and you just go into and you ignore everything. And then there's meditations that are for moving energy and healing. And then there's meditations that you can do that are all about loving the creator and attuning or looking for the solution of a problem. Or from my perspective, meditation has many applications besides calming the mind and attuning and aligning your being and your energy field. There's many, many applications in it. And so she's come up with a particular meditation that I have found feels very benevolent. You ground yourself to the earth, you align yourself up to the cosmic, and you work in your sixth chakra and a screen that you've set up outside your body, in that third layer of the aura, if you're clairvoyant or you're trying to become, and which we all are. It's just exercising those spiritual organs so that you eventually, the soul says, oh, they want to use this now or again. I'm going to fill that in with more of my presence, bring more light into that, and it'll start functioning in a relatively easy amount of time, particularly if you do it in a class. So the visualization of this exercise after you've grounded, aligned, and tuned to the creator, which are basics, is you imagine the earth in front of you a little bit, and you imagine there's two rings outside the earth. That's like her aura. And there's a band of energy in between those two rings. And you can think of that as the earth band and the galactic band, and then on the other side of the galactic band is starry space. And so you go there, you stay here, earth, in your moment and grounded, but you imagine that you are also at the same time attuned to the energy in that band. And it's where a lot of the higher creational energies that are changing the grids and bringing up a lot of light for healing, and a lot of the alchemy and the magic has started and was changed in that place for some of evolution to go forward, and it feels delicious. So I'll do that. And then she recently added, also now aligned to the creational grid. And she's describing the creational grid as in between the master or Christ grid and the human crystalline or consciousness grid that has layers in it, but it also has our Akashic karma of tribes and nations where we have not created in maybe the greatest benevolence in the past when we were less evolved. And so she has said to now from that, just imagine you're tuning to this interim grid, this in-between grid. And she says that's the grid of, she also calls it an interim creational grid or creational grid. She says it's like an in-between place, and their information from the Pleiades that's here in time capsules on the grid of the earth that's supposed to become active now, thanks to a lot of work that other people have done to help prepare that. She says that's sort of where that grid is, and it's a sort of a multi-level grid. I think it connects to several things, but she's described it basically between the Christ grid or the master grid, where our souls come in and hang out, and why we have these experiences, and where people put amazing benevolent wisdom and the energy of us creating and healing and praying together in large groups is on that level. And then your soul's gold, who knows where that goes, but that you heal yourself with in other incarnations. So there's this cycling of gold, creating and using for healing, and then creating and using for healing. And so she said, it's sending a message to your soul that I want to be attuned to that interim grid and this new thing that's happening and the information there. And she said, your soul will come in and again, fill in light, presence, information, who knows what. And so I've been doing those two things as a meditation practice. And I have to admit, it feels very nice. So I just wanted to share that. That's a little something you can do, a new perspective. And I'm going to get out of the way because I want to make these short and sweet, give you your information and let you go about your busy day. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe. I'm a newbie, but I'm learning and I'm getting there. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see what Allaenea is going to tell us today. She's going into the grid of evolution, or the Interim Christ Grid. And she's going to talk more about that, which she has started as a subject in this series. Okay. Oh, good day to you, dearest beings of light. My name is Allaenea of Cosmic Service, Pleiadian Mother of Sound. I chose this one to work with because she has an affinity for much of the things that we have an affinity for. And she's a healer, and we have an affinity for healing. So we chose her for this work and bringing this forward and to share this information with you because it's a good match for us. And she will attract, because of her profession, healers and shamans and spiritual people who are interested in this type of work. So that's how that happens. A willing Chila and the higher creational beings of light that work with the angelics and help create change, and the grids and the blueprints, and work the blueprints of the creator's divine plan, which is loose and juicy. And then you create the details of that generality. And so we're involved in that. We laid the human crystalline grid, we laid the Christ grid, we did this from work on our planet. And that's what we have done for you here, as well as you will do it for the next planetary system that then you become the co-creators in, just like we did with this one. That's the system of the evolution of a planetary system in Supreme Being's creational matrix. It's one way to say it. That's a language you understand from all your movies. Okay, so in this grid of evolution, which is the Interim Christ Grid, which is very accurately described by her in this previous talk that she gave, we would like to give you a little bit more information on what's in that, what it interconnects to, and what is happening with that now. So your mind is linear and has pictures and likes a shape and a picture and a completion. So we're going to paint a little picture that is a metaphor to try to describe very complex, non-visible physics, cosmic, and a new science you don't even know yet, combinations of energies that create and help posture your 3D reality through time and space. And you will learn this over the next 200 years. But we're just giving you little tidbits and tastes. So the Interim Christ Grid has, we're going to describe it as a metaphor. We're going to ask you to imagine the human grid, then the interim creational grid or interim Christ grid, which is the one we're talking about, and then what people call the master or Christ grid. But we would like to give you another terminology for that. We would like you to consider it the grid of soul mastery, because she is absolutely correct from her research. The soul comes into the planet, lodges into this creational system, this grid of information with a lot of souls, and then percolates in to your human crystalline grid and has multiple lives through your higher self. Well, the interim grid has never been active before. The interim grid has never been active before. Before about 2012, The interim grid has never been active before. This is new on your planet. And the interim grid became active because of a series of energy work by groups of people who made that happen. Can you imagine that one small group of 250 upwards to sometimes 800 people that fluctuates could actually do that? And yes, they can. Because even though they were 250 in that room, what they don't realize is the 800 who went to the first choir are all being used as instruments at the soul level to also continue the work. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? So they think they're 250, even almost 99 at one point in a room, but they are not. They are always the size of the core group. So that's an interesting thought. We just wanted to say that for this one and for those who do that. So anyway, so the preparations were made, the activations were given, and the earth grid systems of now the communication between the soul creational level, or whatever we first said that was, the soul grid, that's now the Christ grid. We're going to call this soul thing. She'll go back and get it. We'll remember, who cares? It's like the soul creational grid or whatever we called it. She doesn't like to remember words. She gets all nervous. So we're just going by that. And so that grid is now connected by the interim creational grid to the human crystalline grid. For the first time in history on your planet, that grid is connected to your human crystalline grid. So what that means is that your human crystalline grid can now receive healing energy from, or the Christ master grid or soul creational grid for the first time. So your ability to heal your human crystalline grid is something new. So that's one new connection across your tier. Now, this is your base central core of a hub, and we're going to create a wheel around it. And this one's going, oh my gosh, is this the Lemurian Wheel? We're going to give you a side story. This one was in Nepal on a hiking trip with mostly non-spiritual people, but it was being led by a spiritual counselor who was an incredible reader and spiritual healer that she had met by phone long ago and worked with for 5 years for readings. She calls them her spiritual checkup. And in this Nepal trip, a bunch of them went to a side monastery that was closed for painting, but they went there anyway because this spiritual leader of this group knew that there was some juicy interdimensional creational Pleiadian and mixed group of beings that oversaw this particular monastery. So they went to the lower part before they entered the hill. It was the gate. They had to climb up a mountain, and she asked for permission to enter, and immediately, boom, those beings showed up for her, and they showed her a wheel. She had no idea what it was. She said, does that mean I'm in the middle and these things in my life are all to be in the middle with the focus on the divine or God in the center? And they just went, and she was like, well, I obviously don't have it. She's tried to pull that in since and gotten little tidbits, but not. Dear one, this is what they wished you to know. We're going to let that out for the public because it applies to everyone now. So your hub and your wheel in the middle, you can think of as the human crystalline grid, the interim creational grid that has just become active, and the soul creational grid or master grid or Christ grid. That's the hub. It's the ability to go from the droses of the experience of being human, back to soul, back to God, back to source, in and out. So around that hub are 5 spokes and a wheel, and the wheel has 2 sides, and there's a golden amber part, a jewel on one end of the wheel, and a amber colored, darker orangey jewel on the other side of the wheel, and that's the Lemurian Wheel. So let us go into what we're going to say. I'm going to put that story aside. So in one of those spokes, these spokes actually represent pathways to different levels of grids. So, and they are often talked about in relation to evolutionary planetary systems of other planets, such as Sirius or Pegasus or Andromeda, Arcturus, and the Pleiades, of course. And those are metaphors. So let us describe the spoke. Now the spokes are designed so that the spoke is here, and at the bottom is a space. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and the space at the bottom, and your 5 spokes, your 5 spaces are divided like this. Like this. And the middle has the space. So you got 2, 2, and 1. So think of it like a tripod. So at the bottom are the 2 like this, and there's a space in the middle. So we have 5 spaces and 5 spokes and the hub and a wheel around it. So let us do going around from the top. If you're looking at the wheel, the top to the right, and we're going to do a spoke and hub, a spoke and hub, a spoke and hub, a spoke and hub, a spoke and hub. The first spoke and hub represent the ancestral energy. Doesn't matter what planet represents that, because those planets can change in that, those interpretations of energy. So you can think of the first spoke as being the ancestral energy, and it represents etheric and astral. The spaces are astral because when you're in a space, it's contained and it has a flavor. The spokes are directional. They're very specific, form and structure. So you have the ancestor energy. In the next spoke going around the wheel, you have universal life energy. That's soul group energy. That goes out to the torus, out of the outer torus of your energy field, of all of the energy fields of humans, to the greater field, where there's the soul group energy of tribes and nations, some healing that needs there, which is what we're talking about in a lot of our videos, and the connection to the supreme being creational levels. We call it the supreme being heart engine, for lack of better words. And so that goes ancestors, and the next one has to do with the energy. She's get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. New information. She gets a little nervous. Please forgive this one. She is, believe it or not, fairly new at channeling. So the next spoke is about the energy of the interim. Let's just get her out of the way, all the way. Excuse us. She thinks she has to remember what I just said. That's her problem. So we have the ancestor energy, and the next spoke is the energy to past lives. It's all of your Akashic information and your etheric and astral there. The middle spoke that's at the bottom is like a foundation. And that is to your galactic memory in your Taurus, believe it or not, because that's your largest memory bank of information, your galactic memory. All the times you've been on the planets, created and left and came to another one. That has a deep well of information, but you can't access that yet. The fourth spoke and space has to do with your creational energy that has to do with either creating a baby through the male or creating a baby through the female. It has to do with the evolving form and evolutionary creation of humans coming into your planetary system. Who imagined there was a whole spoken grid about that? Because people don't really talk about that one much. So we have ancestors, we have your, well, let's sum it up after. And the fifth spoken wheel is about your connection through your higher self. Your connection through your higher self, going through the astral and the etheric, which is so far so little understood. There's so much there that the higher self does in later evolutionary stages upon the earth that you can't even imagine. You see your higher self as, when you see your higher self as a spirit and a body in meditation, it can present as a very strange creature. not looking human at all. And it's because it is enlivened with all the evolutionary spiritual forms of the pre-material body evolution that it has ever had. So it can present as a strange creature. And eventually, as it heals, it starts to look more like you. And it's skittish and shy. So people tend to think of their higher self as, oh, it's representing my Akashic karma of the good and bad that I have created here on earth. It's so much more. It is so much more. We're not going to get into that in this channeling, but we wanted you to start to look at your higher self, which is your inner Taurus records of all you've experienced on earth, as being connected to soul and these divine levels. And it is part of your evolutionary anatomy. It's not the interim spirit body that changes so the spirit body can then evolve a new form. It is something very different. And that information will start to percolate through before this one's lifetime ends. And you'll get some information about that. So we basically went around that wheel and we said ancestors, and we said universal life, the soul group level, and we said your galactic information, and we said your, get out of the way, get out of the way, and we said your Akashic higher self karma, and we also said your higher self. I think that's what we said. If we got one of those wrong, just don't worry about it. She's a little flighty today because she hasn't channeled it. All right, so we wished you to understand that this is now like a highway that you've opened. You have the hub, you have that master grid, the Christ grid, that soul creational grid that your soul is in its fairly perfected state. You have the interim creational grid, and you have the grid, and then you have a wheel around it with all of these energies that you all share. And so what is the ring around that now? That ring represents the containment of your planetary system. Now, the jewels. This one has discovered, and it was said in one of the other videos, she said it, she discovered in exploring her spiritual anatomy based on where she is in healing, that there is literally in your spiritual anatomy an amber, orangey gold dot down here. I'm looking at the solar plexus down here, and there is a golden dot here in the high thymus. And the amber dot relates to the creational mandala and a sound point there. And the golden dot relates to something in the head and a gold dot there. And that these are related to sound, the pineal communication system of your creational soul level that interfaces into your spirit body. And she didn't get much beyond that. So she knows these dots are profound because she has seen them on a picture of the Lemurian Wheel in a small course she took, and that person saw them. And then she saw them, so she knows they're real. So what are the dots? Here's your ring around your planet. Here is your base energy of a larger scale. Now, we're not going to the individual and life force, personal power. This is you collectively. This wheel represents you collectively. And so the dots, this one's starting to think, wormholes, doorways out into space, multidimensionality of our being. She's throwing that out there in a little tiny way. I can tell. It's not. It represents the golden highway to other evolved systems. It represents the golden highway to other evolved systems. It represents the golden highway to other evolved systems. The amber dot represents going through the earth and out, and the cosmic gold dot represents going straight out to cosmic and out. Now, who can go straight out to cosmic and travel through cosmic out? Someone from an evolved system who has risen to that level. Who can ride the earth stream out? Someone who is partially evolved and not completely evolved. And they only get so far in that stream. So we're going to say a very strange story to sum this up. This one helped us with a group called the Pleiadian Timekeepers. And a group of etheric whales who hold the blueprints for humanity. And she passed codes between us so that we can insert a new timeline back in, I think it might have been 2011, and during the summer. For 5 days, we did this work. It was trippy. And at the end of that, as a thank you present, she was taught a bunch of things by some elementals, and they brought her down the beach, and they were having her do particular exercises with the elements in her bodies and getting her used to that. And they did it 3 times. And on the 4th time, the gnome she knew, that's part of a long story, showed up, and he escorted her on a journey. She went through a wormhole down into the center of the planet. She met the great being that people talk about there, who presents as a human. And he took her on a trip, shooting out a wormhole out into space to Sirius in the Lion's Gate of August 7th or 8th time frame. And he said to her while she was shooting through that wormhole, look at yourself, look at your body. And she looked down and she saw, like an etheric looking body, but a scintillating body of light. There were fibers and there was light shooting on them and everything. And that's exactly kind of what that was. It's a type of body that you travel in at a certain stage through the amber dot. It's not an etheric body like she is described that oversees the physical body. You can think of it as an overlay to an evolving spiritual body, not an interim body, but a whole nother kind of body, one that you use to travel in space. That's all we're going to say about that. So she shot out and she went to Sirius, and some of that memory she brought back. She remembers going through a pool of water and being all refreshed, and they took her to a window, showed her a portal out beyond our universe, and said they're waiting for these information to come through that way. And it looked very much like the electron telescopes that they now have, where they show those amazing cloud pictures with lots of colors and beauty and things, which she had never seen because they hadn't been done by that point. And then she came back. She was allowed to go to a council chamber visually in her mind, where they were having some sort of meeting, and sit on the periphery. And she remembers nothing that went on. And that was that. And then she shot through a wormhole back and came back into her body and had that experience. Dear one, we're here to tell you that was real, and you knew it was real. And we're here to let you know that those dots are profound entranceways for spirit, body, and soul. Well, we're talking spiritual bodies. And that's all we're going to say about that. But within our words and within the information we just gave you, there is a lot of percolating that can be done, imagining these grid connections, these particular energies, and planetary healing. And we're going to leave you with these thoughts this day as a bit of a mystery and a bit of a thing to puzzle, because sometimes when you puzzle in meditation over particular things, things will reveal themselves. That's what we wished you to know this day. You are dearly loved. Expect benevolence in all you do, and we bid you good day and good life. This is Allaenea of Cosmic Service, Pleiadian Mother of Sound, episode 20 of the Heartfield series. Okay, thank you. It's true. I took a break from channeling, and I just needed a break. It's summer. In my teaching on my website, I say July and August are off. Woohoo! We all need to recharge. And I have other work and other projects I like to do then. So this is episode 20 of the Heartfield series. I hope you found that information interesting. You can find a lot of information about the Lemurian Wheel. Monica Marani has a website, and she has a lot of information about it. She's considered the archivist for the channeler Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon, who from the 80s brought in lots of beautiful information that was at a time when we really needed a resource for that. And I'm so thankful for that information during those years, and continuing that work that they do now. They have a meditation that they do called Healing Wednesdays, and some other things they do, and trips, and check it out. Good information. And you also will find it on a woman named Lily Wong. She has a course you can get online called the Lemurian Wheel. That's the one I took. And it was very expanding. There's some very juicy, good work in that. And so if there's energy work or activations or alignments that are given in any seminar, you actually can have them at any time, because from the spirit world, there's no time and space. You just imagine you're ground and align that group, bring them in the future, ground and align in front of you, and just surrender, tune in, and I'm part of that group and I'm having that activation. So we are constantly affecting people in our work, despite the fact we think it only happened back then. So you can tune into anyone's work, and if your soul is thinking that's a good thing for you, or however this system works, you can have that work too. I've done it. It works. All right. Thank you. And I'm a little chatty today. Have a great time, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.